Shalom to you all on YouTube. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. I wanted to do this very good. This is going to be a long reading because the book of Jasher really has a lot of details regarding Abraham's journey and obviously the conflicts between the reigns of the nations at the time, the wars going on during the time of Abraham's journey. So since this book kind of goes back and forth between like what Abraham's doing versus the countries fighting each other, that's why I put this in one subject. So so I hope you all enjoyed this reading, and this is going to be from the book of Jasher, chapter 13, to the book of Jasher, chapter 28. So, yes, it's going to be a longer reading today. Okay, so chapter 13, it says, And Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and Sarai, his daughter in law, the wife of his son Abram, and all the beings of his household went with them from Ur Kasdim to the land of Canaan. And when they came as far as the land of Haran, they remained there, for it was exceedingly good land for pasture, and of large enough for those who accompanied them. And the people of the land of Haran saw that Abram was good and upright with Yahuwah in men, and that Yahuwah was with him. And some of the people in the land of Haran came and joined Abram, and taught them the instructions of Yahuwah and his ways. These men remained with Abram in his house, and they clung to him. And Abram remained in the land 3 years, and at the passing of 3 years, Yahuwah appeared to Abram and said to him, I am Yahuwah, who brought you out of Ur Kasdim, and delivered you from the hands of all your enemies. And now, therefore, if you will listen to my voice and keep my commandments, my Torah, and my laws, then I will cause your enemies to fall before you, and I will multiply your seed like the stars of the heavens. And I'll send my blessings on all the works of your hands, and you shall lack nothing. Arise now, take your wife and all belonging to you, and go to the land of Canaan and remain there. I will be I will be with you there, and I will bless you. And Abraham rose and took his wife and all belonging to him, and he went to the land of Canaan as Yahuwah has told him. And Abram was 50 years old when he went to Haran. And Abram came to the land of Canaan and dwelt in the midst of the city, and he pitched his tent there among the children of Canaan and the inhabitants of the land. And Yahuwah appeared to Abram when he came to the land of Canaan, and said to him, This is the land which I gave to you and to your seed after you forever. And I will make your seed like the stars of the heavens, and I will give your seed to all the lands which you see for an inheritance. And Abram built an altar in the place where Yahuwah had spoken to him. And there Abram called on the name of Yahuwah. And at that time, at the end of 3 years of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, in that year Noah died, which was the 58th year of the life of Abram. All the days that Noah lived were 950 years old, and he died. And Abram dwelt in the land of Canaan, he and his wife, and all belonging to him, and all those that accompanied him, together with those that joined him from the people of the land. But Nahor, Abraham's brother, and Terah his father, and Lot the son of Haran, and all belonging to them, dwelt in Haran. And in the 5th year of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, the people of Sodom and Gomorrah and all the cities of the plain revolted from the power of Kedorlaomer, the sovereign of Elam. For all the sovereigns of the cities on the plains had served Kedorlaomer for 12 years and given him a yearly levy. But in those days, in the 13th year, they rebelled against him. And in the 10th year of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, there was fighting between Nimrod, the son of Shinar, and Kedorlaomer, the sovereign of Elam. And Nimrod came to fight against Kedorlaomer and to subdue him. And, and for Kedorlaomer, what that time was one of the princes of the armies of Nimrod, when all the people of the tower was dispersed, and those that remained there also scattered over the face of the earth. Kedorlaomer went to the land of Elam and reigned over it and rebelled against his master. And in those days, when Nimrod saw that the cities in the plain had rebelled, he came with pride and wrath and to fight against Kedorlaomer. And Nimrod assembled all his princes and subjects, about 700,000 men, and went against Kedorlaomer. And Kedorlaomer went out to meet him with 5,000 men, and they prepared for battle in the valley of Babylon, which is between Elam and Shinar. And all the servants fought there, and Nimrod and his people were smitten before the people of Kedorlaomer. And there fell from Nimrod's men about 600,000, and Mardon the sovereign's son fell among them. And Nimrod fled and returned in shame and disgrace to this his land, and he came under subjection to Kedorlaomer for a long time. And Kedorlaomer returned to his land and sent princes of his army to the sovereigns that dwelt around him, to Arok the sovereign of Elasar, and to Tidal the sovereign of Goim, and made a covenant with them, and they were all obedient to his commands. And it came to be in the 15th year of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, that is the 70th year of the life of Abram, that Yahuwah appeared to Abram in that year, and he said to him, I am Yahuwah, who brought you out of Ur-Kasdim to give you this land for an inheritance. Now therefore walk before me and be perfect and keep my commands, for to you and to your seed I will give this land for an inheritance, from the river of Egypt or Mitzrayim to the river of Perath. And you shall come to your fathers in peace and in good age, and the fourth generation shall return here in this land and shall inherit it forever. But Abram built an altar, and he called on the name of Yahuwah, who appeared to him, and he offered burnt offerings on the altar to Yahuwah. At that time Abram returned and went to Haran to see his father and mother, and his father's household. And Abram and his wife and all belonging to him returned to Haran, and Abram dwelt in Haran 5 years. And many people of Haran, about 72 men, followed Abram, and Abram taught them the instruction of Yahuwah and his ways, and he taught them to know Yahuwah. In those days Yahuwah appeared to Abram in Haran, and he said to him, See, I spoke to you these 20 years ago, saying, Go out from your land and from your birthplace and from your father's house to the land which I've shown you, to give it to you and your children, and there in that land will I bless you and make you a great nation and make your name great, and in you shall the clans of the earth be blessed. And therefore arise, go out from this place, you, your wife, and all belonging to you, and every one born in your house, and all the beings you have made in Haran, and bring them out with you from here, and rise and return to the land of Canaan. And Abram arose and took his wife Sarai and all belonging to him, and they were all born to him in his house, and the beings which they had made in Haran, and they came out to go to the land of Canaan. And Abram went and returned to the land of Canaan according to the word of Yahuwah, and Lot, son of his brother Haran, went with him. And Abram was 75 years old, and he went out from Haran to return to the land of Canaan. And he came to the land of Canaan according to the word of Yahuwah to Abram, and he pitched his tent, and he dwelt in the plain of Mamre. And with him was Lot his brother's son, and all belonging to him. And Yahuwah appeared to Abram and said, To your seed I will give this land. And he built an altar there to Yahuwah, who appeared to him, which is still in the plains of Mamre to this day. Chapter 14. In those days there was in the land of Shinar a wise man who had had understanding and all wisdom and good looking, but he was poor and needy. His name was Rikayon, and he was hard pressed to support himself. He resolved to go to Egypt to Osiris, the son of Anannim, the sovereign of Egypt. to show the sovereign his wisdom. For maybe he might find favor in his sight to raise him up to give him support. And Ricion did so. And Ricion came to Egypt and asked the inhabitants of Egypt concerning the sovereign. And the inhabitants of Egypt told him the custom of the sovereign of Egypt. And it was then the custom of the sovereign of Egypt that he went from his royal palace and was seen abroad only one day in the year, and after that the sovereign would return to his palace and remain there. And on the day when the sovereign went forth, he passed judgment in the land, and everyone having a case came before the sovereign in that day to obtain his request. And when Ricion heard of the custom of in Egypt, that he could not come into the presence of the sovereign, he grieved greatly and was very sorrowful. And in evening, Ricion went out and found a house in ruins, formerly a bakehouse in Egypt, and he stayed there all night in bitterness of being been pinched with hunger, and sleep fled from his eyes. And Ricion considered within himself that he should do in the town until the sovereign made his appearance, and how he might maintain himself there. He rose in the morning and walked about and met in his way to those who sold vegetables and various kinds of seed with which they supplied the inhabitants. The Ricion wanted to do the same in order to get a livelihood in the city, but he was unacquainted with the custom of the people, and he was like a blind man among them. And he went and obtained vegetables to sell them for his support. And the rabble assembled about him and ridiculed him and took his vegetables from him and left him nothing. Then he rose up from there in bitterness of being and went sighing to the bakehouse in which he had remained all night before, and he slept there the second night. And on that night again he reasoned within himself how he could save himself from starvation, and he devised a scheme on how to act. He rose up in the morning and acted cleverly, and went and hired 30 strong men of the rabble, carrying their weapons in their hands, and he led them to the top of the Egyptian tomb, and he placed them there. And he commanded them, saying, Thus said the sovereign, strengthen yourselves and be mighty men, and let no man be buried here until 200 pieces of silver be given, and then he may be buried. And those men did according to the order of Ricion and the people of Egypt the whole of that year. And in 8 months' time, Ricion and his men gathered great riches of silver and gold. And Ricion took a great quantity of horses and other animals, and he hired more men, and he gave them horses, and they remained with him. And at the turn of the year, at the time the sovereign went forth from the town, all the inhabitants of Egypt assembled together to speak to him, according to the work of Ricion and his men. And the sovereign went forth on the appointed day, and all the Egyptians came before him and cried to him, saying, May the sovereign live forever. What is this matter you do in the town to your servants, to not allow a dead body to be buried until so much silver and gold be given? Was there ever uh, the like of this done in the whole earth from the days of the former sovereigns, and even from the days of Adam to this day, that the dead should not be buried except for a fixed price? We know it be for the custom of sovereigns to take a yearly levy from the living, and you do not only do this, but from the dead also you exact a levy day by day. Now, O sovereign, we can no longer bear this. For this sake, the whole city is ruined, and do you not know it? And when the sovereign heard all that they have spoken, he was very wroth, and his wrath was burned within him at this matter, and he had known nothing of it. And the sovereign said, Who and where is he that desires to do this wicked matter in my land without my command? Indeed, you will tell me. And they told him all the works of Ricion and his men, and the sovereign's wrath was aroused, and he ordered Ricion and his men to be brought before him. And Ricion took about 1,000 children, sons and daughters, and clothed them in silk and embroidery. And he put them on horses and sent them to the sovereign by means of his men. He also took a great quantity of silver and gold and precious stones and a strong and good-looking horse as a present for the sovereign, with which he came before the sovereign and bowed down to the earth before him. And the sovereign and his servants and all the inhabitants of Egypt wondered at the work of Richion, and they saw his riches and the present that he had brought to the sovereign. And it greatly pleased the sovereign, and he wondered at it. And when Richion sat before him, the sovereign asked him concerning all his works. And Richion spoke all his words wisely before the sovereign and his servants and all the inhabitants of Egypt. And when the sovereign heard the words of Richion in his wisdom, Richion found favor in his sight, and he met with favor and kindness from all the servants of the sovereign and from all the inhabitants of Egypt because of his wisdom and excellent speeches. And from that time they loved him exceedingly. And the sovereign answered and said to Richion, your name shall no more be called Richion, but your name shall be called Pharaoh. Since you exacted a levy from the dead, he called his name Pharaoh. And the sovereign and his subjects loved Richion for his wisdom, and they consulted all the inhabitants of Egypt to make him perfect under the sovereign. And all the inhabitants of Egypt and its wise men did so, and it was made a law in Egypt. And they made Richion Pharaoh perfect under Osiris, the sovereign of Egypt. And Richion Pharaoh governed over Egypt, daily administering right ruling to the whole city. But Osiris, the sovereign, would judge the people of the land one day in the year, and he went out to make his appearance. And Richion Pharaoh cunningly usurped the reign of Egypt, and he exacted a levy from all the inhabitants of Egypt. And all the inhabitants of Egypt greatly loved Richion Pharaoh, and they made a decree to call every sovereign that should reign over them and their seed in Egypt Pharaoh. And all the sovereigns that reigned in Egypt from that time onward were called Pharaoh to this day. So that is the story in chapter 14. That is the very first Pharaoh in Egypt. Now, chapter 15. In that year, there was a severe scarcity of food throughout the land of Canaan, and the inhabitants of the land could not remain because of the scarcity of food, and it was very grievous. And Abram and all belonging to him rose and went down to Egypt because of the scarcity of food. And when they were at the river of Egypt, they remained there and some time to rest from the fatigue of the journey. And Abram and Sarai were walking the border of the river of Egypt, and Abram saw his wife Sarai that she was very good looking. And Abram said to his wife Sarai, since Yahuwah has created you with such good looking appearance, I am afraid that the Egyptians, lest they should slay me and take you away, for the fear of Yahuwah is not in these places. Indeed, then you shall do this. Say that you are my sister, and all that may ask you, in order that it may be well with me, and that we may live and not be put to death. And Abram commanded the same to all those that came with him to Egypt because of the scarcity of food. Also his nephew Lot, and he commanded, saying, if the Egyptians ask you concerning Sarai, say she is the sister of Abram. And yet, with all the orders, Abram did not put confidence in them, but he took Sarai and placed her in a chest and concealed it among their goods. For Abram was greatly concerned about Sarai because of the wickedness of the Egyptians. And Abram and all belonging to him rose up from the river of Egypt and came to Egypt, and they had scarcely entered the gates of the city, with the guards stood up to them, saying, give tithe to the sovereign from what you have, and that you may come into the town. And Abram and those that were with him did so. And Abram with the people that were with him came to Egypt. And when they came, they brought the chest which Sarai was concealed, and the Egyptians saw the chest. And the sovereign servants approached Abram, saying, "What have you here in this chest which we have not seen? Now open the chest and give tithe to the sovereign of all that it contains." And Abram said, "This chest I will not open, but all you demand upon it I will give." And the Pharaoh's officers answered Abram, saying, It is a chest of precious stones, and give us a tenth of it. And Abram said, "All that you desire I will give, but you must not open the chest." But the sovereign's officers pressed Abram, and they reached the chest and opened it with force, and they looked and see a good-looking woman in the chest. And when the officers of the sovereign saw Sarai, they were struck with admiration at her good looks. And all the princes and servants of Pharaoh assembled to see Sarai, for she was very good looking. And the sovereign's officers ran and told Pharaoh all that they had seen, and they praised Sarai to the sovereign, and Pharaoh ordered her to be brought, and the woman came before the sovereign. And Pharaoh saw Sarai, and she pleased him exceedingly, and he was struck by her good looks. And the sovereign rejoiced greatly for her sake, and bestowed presents on those who brought him the news concerning her. And the woman was then brought to the Pharaoh's house, and Abram grieved for the sake of his wife, and he prayed to Yahuwah to deliver her from the hands of Pharaoh. And Sarai also prayed at that time, saying, "O Yahuwah, you told my master Abram to go from his land from his father's house to the land of Canaan, and you promised to do well with him if he performed your commands. Now see, we have done what you commanded us, and we left our land and our clans, and we went to a strange land, to a people whom we have not known before. And we came to this land to avoid the scarcity of food, and this evil accident have befallen me. Now therefore, O Yahuwah, deliver us and save us from the hand of this oppressor, and do well with me for the sake of your favor." And Yahuwah listened to the voice of Sarai, and Yahuwah sent a messenger to deliver Sarai from the power of Pharaoh. And the sovereign came and sat before Sarai, and see, a messenger of Yahuwah was standing before them, and he appeared to Sarai and said to her, "Do not fear, for Yahuwah has heard your prayer." And the sovereign approached Sarai and said to her, "What is that man to you who brought you here?" And she said, "He is my brother." And the sovereign said, "It is necessary for us to make him great, to exalt him, to do to him all the good which you shall command us." And at that time the sovereign sent to Abram silver and gold and precious stones in great amount, together with cattle, male servants and female servants. And the sovereign ordered Abram to be brought, and he sat in the court of the sovereign's house. And the sovereign greatly exalted Abram on that night. And the sovereign approached to speak to Sarai, and he reached out his hand to touch her. And when the messenger smote him heavenly, and he was afraid, and he refrained from reaching to her. And the sovereign came near to Sarai, and the messenger smote him to the ground, and did so to him the whole night. And the sovereign was afraid. And on that night the messenger smote all the servants of the sovereign and his whole household severely because of Sarai. And there was a great lamentation that night among the people of Pharaoh's house. And Pharaoh, seeing the evil that befell him, said, "Indeed, this matter has befallen me because of this woman." And he removed himself to some distance from her and spoke pleasing words to her. And the sovereign said to Sarai, "Please tell me concerning the man with whom you came here." And Sarai said, "This man is my husband, and I said to you he was my brother, for I was afraid lest you should put him to death through wickedness." And the sovereign kept away from Sarai, and the plagues of the messenger of Yahuwah ceased from him and his household. And the Pharaoh knew that he was smitten, because of Sarai, and the sovereign was greatly astonished at this. And in the morning the sovereign called from Abram and said to him, "What is this you have done to me? Why did you say she is my sister, owning to which I took her to me for a wife, and therefore this heavy plague has come upon me and my household? Now therefore here is your wife, and take her and go from our land, lest we all die for her sake." And Pharaoh took more cattle, male servants and female servants, and silver and gold to give to Abram, and he returned Sarai his wife to him. And when the sovereign took a maiden whom he brought forth by his concubines, he gave her to Sarai for a female servant. And the sovereign said to his daughter, "It is better for you, my daughter, to be a female servant in this man's house than to be a mistress in my house, after we have seen the evil that befell us because of this woman." And Abram arose, and he and all belonging to him went away from Egypt, and Pharaoh ordered some of his men to accompany him, and all that went with him. And Abram returned to the land of Canaan, to the place where he had made an altar, where he at first had pitched his tent. And Lot the son of Haran, Abram's brother, had a numerous stock of cattle, flocks, herds, and tents, for Yahuwah was good to them because of Abram. And when Abram was dwelling in the land, the herdsmen of Lot quarreled with the herdsmen of Abram, for their property was too great for them to remain together in the land, and the land could not bear them because of their cattle. And when Abram's herdsmen went to feed their flock, and would not go into the fields of the people of the land, but the cattle of Lot's herdsmen did otherwise, for they were sent to feed to the fields of the people of the land. And the people of the land saw this occurrence daily, and they came to Abram and quarreled with him because of Lot's herdsmen. And Abram said to Lot, "What is this you are doing to me to make me despicable to the inhabitants of the land, that you ordered your herdsmen to feed your cattle in the fields of other people? Do you not know that I am a stranger in this land among the children of Canaan? And why would you do this to me?" And Abram quarreled daily with Lot because of this, but Lot would not listen to Abram, and he continued to do the same. And the inhabitants of the land came and told Abram. And Abram said to Lot, "How long will you be a stumbling block to me with the inhabitants of the land? Now please let there be no more quarreling between us, for we are kinsmen. But please separate from me and go and choose a place where you may dwell with your cattle and all belonging to you. But keep yourself at a distance from me, you and your household. And do not be afraid and go on from me, for if anyone does injury to you, let me know, and I will avenge your cause from him. Only remove from me." And when Abram had spoken all these words to Lot, and Lot rose up and lifted his eyes towards the plain of the Yarden, and he saw the whole of the place was well watered and good for men, as well as affording pasture and cattle. And Lot went from Abram to that place, and he pitched his tent there, and he dwelled in Sodom, and they were separated from each other. And Abram dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and he pitched his tent there. And Abram remained in that place many years. Chapter 16. At that time, Kedorlaomer, the sovereign of Elam, sent to all his neighboring sovereigns to Nimrod, the sovereign of Shinar, who was then under his power, and to Tidal, the sovereign of Goyim, and to Arak, the sovereign of Elasar, with whom he had made a covenant, saying, "Come up to me and assist me, that we might smite all the towns of Sodom and its inhabitants, for they have rebelled against me these 13 years. And the four sovereigns went up with all their armies, about 800,000 men, and they went as they were, and smote every man they found in their way. And the five sovereigns of Sodom and Gomorrah and Senab, the sovereign of Admah, and Shemeber, the sovereign of Seboim, and Bera, the sovereign of Sodom, and Bersha, the sovereign of Gomorrah, and Bela, the sovereign of Thor, and went out to meet them, and they all joined together in the valley of Siddim. And all 9 sovereigns fought in the valley of Siddim, and the sovereigns of Sodom and Gomorrah were smitten before the sovereigns of Elam. And the valley of Siddim was full of tar pits, and the sovereigns of Elam pursued the sovereigns of Sodom, and the sovereigns of Sodom with their armies fled and fell into the tar pits. And they all remained, went into the mountain for safety. And the 5 sovereigns of Elam came after them and pursued them to the gates of Sodom. And they took all there that was in Sodom. And they plundered all the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and they also took Lot, Abraham's brother's son, and his property, and they seized all the goods of the city of Sodom, and they went away. And Eunuch, Abraham's servant, who was in battle, saw this and told Abram all that the sovereigns had done to the cities of Sodom, and that Lot was taken captive by them. And Abram heard this, and he arose up with about 318 men that were with him, and that night he pursued those sovereigns and smote them. And they all fell before Abram and his men, and there was none remaining but the 4 sovereigns who fled, and they went each to his own way. And Abram recovered all the property of Sodom, and they also recovered Lot and his property, his wives and his little ones, and all belonging to him, so that Lot lacked nothing. And when he returned from smiting the sovereigns, he and his men passed the valley of Siddim, where the sovereigns had fought together. And Barah, the sovereign of Sodom, and the rest of his men that were with him went out from the tar pits into which they had fallen to meet Abram and his men. And Adonai Tezek, the sovereign of Jerusalem, the same was Shem, went out with his men to meet Abram and his people with bread and wine, and they remained together in the valley of Molech. And Adonizedek blessed Abraham, and Abraham gave him a tenth of all that he had brought from the spoil of his enemies, for Adonizedek was a priest before Yahuwah. And all the sovereigns of Sodom and Gomorrah who were there were their servants, approached Abram and begged of him to return to their servants, which he had made captive, to take for himself all the property. And Abram answered and the sovereigns of Sodom, saying, As Yahuwah lives, who created the heavens and the earth, who redeemed my being from all affliction, and who delivered me this day from my enemies, to give them into my hand, and I will not take anything belonging to you, that you may not boast tomorrow, saying, Abram became rich from our property that he saved. For Yahuwah, in whom I trust, said to me, You shall lack nothing, and I will bless you in all the works of your hands. And now therefore see, he is all belonging to you. Take it and go, as Yahuwah lives, and I will not take from you a living being down to a shoestring or a thread, except for the expense of the food and those who went out with me to the battle. Also the portions of the men who went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, they and their men, as well as all those also who had remained to watch the baggage, and they shall take their portion of the spoil. And the sovereigns of Sodom gave Abram according to all he had said, and they pressed him to take of whatever he chose, but he would not. And he sent away the sovereigns of Sodom and the remainder of their men, and he gave them orders about Lot, and they went to their respective places. And he also sent away Lot and his brother's son with his property, and he went with them. And Lot returned to his home to Sodom, and Abram and his people returned to their home for the plains of Mamre, which is in Hebron. And at that time Yahuwah again appeared to Abram in Hebron, saying, Do not fear, your reward is very great before me, for I will not leave you until I shall have multiplied you, and bless you, and make your seed like the stars of the heavens, and cannot be measured nor numbered. And I will give to your seed all these lands that you see with your eyes, and to them I will give an inheritance forever. Only be strong and do not fear, and walk before me and be perfect. In the 78th year, the life of Abram, in that year, Reu the son of Peleg died. And all the days of Reu were 239 years, and he died. And Sarai, the daughter of Haran, Abram's wife, was still barren in those days, for she did not bear to Abram either son or daughter. And when she saw that she bore no children, she took her female servant Hagar, whom Pharaoh had given her, and she gave her to Abram, her husband, for a wife. And Hagar learned all the ways of Sarai as Sarai taught her, and she was not in any way lacking in following her good ways. And Sarai said to Abram, see, here is my female servant Hagar. Go to her, that she may give birth upon my knees, and may also obtain children through her. And at the end of 10 years of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, which is the 85th year of Abram's life, Sarai gave Hagar to him. And Abram listened to the voice of his wife Sarai, and he took his female servant Hagar, and Abram came to her, and she conceived. And Hagar saw that she had conceived, she greatly rejoiced, but her mistress was despised in her eyes, and she said within herself, this can only be that I am better before Yahuwah than Sarai my mistress. For all the days that my mistress had been with my master, she did not conceive. But Yahuwah has caused me in so short a time to be conceived by him. And Sarai saw that Hagar has conceived by Abram, and Sarai was jealous of her female servant. And Sarai said within herself, this is indeed none else other than that she must be better than I am. And Sarai said to Abram, my wrong be upon you, for at time when you prayed before Yahuwah for children, why did you not pray for my sake, that Yahuwah should give me seed from you? And when I speak to Hagar in your presence, she despises my words, because she has conceived, and you will say nothing to her. May Yahuwah judge between you and I for what you have done to me. And Abram said to Sarai, see, your female servant is in your hand. Do to her as seems good unto your eyes. And Sarai afflicted her, and Hagar fled from her to the wilderness. And a messenger of Yahuwah found her in the place where she had fled by a well, and he said to her, do not fear, for I will multiply your seed. For you shall bear a son, and you shall call his name Ishmael. And then return to Sarai your mistress, and submit yourself under her hands. And Hagar came to a place of that well, Beer Lahai Roi, which is between Kadesh, the wilderness of Bered. And at that time Hagar returned to her master's house, and at the end of the days of Hagar bore a son to Abram, and Abram called his name Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old when he brought him forth. Chapter 17. And in those days, in the 91st year of the life of Abram, the children of the Hittites fought against the children of Tubal. For when Yahuwah had scattered the sons of men upon the face of the earth, the children of the Hittites went and established themselves in the plain of Canopia, and they built themselves cities there, and dwelt by the river of Tiberu. And the children of Tubal went in Tuscana, and their boundaries reached the river Tiberu. And the children of Tubal built a city in Tuscana, and they called the name Sabinah. For the name of Sabinah, the son of Tubal, their father, and they dwelt there to this day. And it came to be at that time that the children of the Hittites fought against the children of Tubal, and the children of Tubal were smitten before the children of the Hittites, and the children of the Hittites caused 370 men to fall from the children of Tubal. And at that time the children of Tubal swore to the children of the Hittites, saying, you shall not intermarry among us, and no man shall give his daughter to any of the sons of the Hittites. For all the daughters of Tubal were in those days lovely, for when no women were found in the whole earth so lovely as the daughters of Tubal. And in all who delighted in good looks of women went to the daughters of Tubal and took wives from them. And the sons of men, sovereigns and princes, were greatly delighted in the good looks of the women, and took wives in those days from the daughters of Tubal. And at the end of the 3 years after the children of Tubal had sworn to the children of the Hittites not to give them their daughters for wives, about 20 men of the children of the Hittites went to take some of the daughters of Tubal, but they found none. And the children of Tubal kept their oaths to not intermarry with them, and they would not break their oaths. And in the days of harvest, when the children of Tubal went into their fields to reap their harvest, the young men of the Hittites assembled and went to the city of Sabinah. Each man took a young woman from the daughters of Tubal, and they named their cities. And the children of Tubal heard of it, and they went to fight against them, but they could not prevail over them, for the mountain was exceedingly high from them. And when they saw they could not prevail over them, they returned to their land. And at the turn of the year of the children of Tubal went and hired about 10,000 men from those cities that were near them, and they went to fight against the children of the Hittites. And the children of Tubal went to fight against the children of the Hittites, to destroy their land and to distress them. In this battle, the children of Tubal prevailed over the children of the Hittites. And the children of the Hittites, seeing that they were greatly distressed, lifted up the children which they had by the daughters of Tubal upon the wall which had been built to be before the eyes of the children of Tubal. And the children of the Hittites said to them, Have you come to fight against your own sons and daughters? For have we not considered your flesh and bones from that time until now? And the children of Tubal heard this, and they ceased to fight against the children of the Hittites, and they went away. And they returned to their cities, and at that time the children of the Hittites assembled and built 2 cities by the sea. One was called Purtu, and the other was Arizah. And Abram the son of Terah was then 99 years old. And at that time Yahuwah appeared to him, and he said to him, I will establish my covenant between me and you, and I will greatly multiply your seed. And this is the covenant which I make between you and I, that every male child be circumcised, you and your seed after you. At 8 days old it should be circumcised, and this covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And now therefore your name shall no longer be called Abram, but Abraham, and your wife shall no longer be called Sarai, but Sarah. And I will bless you both, and I will multiply your seed after you, that you shall become a great nation, and sovereigns shall come forth from you. Chapter 18. And Abraham rose and did all that Yahuwah had ordered him, and he took the men of his household and those brought with his silver, and he circumcised them as Yahuwah had commanded him. And there was not one left in whom he did not circumcise. And Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised in the flesh of their foreskin. And Ishmael was 13 years old, and when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And in the 3rd day, Abraham went out of his tent and sat at the door to enjoy the heat of the sun during the pain of his flesh. And Yahuwah appeared to him in the plain of Mamre, and sent 3 of his ministering messengers to visit him. And he was sitting at the door of the tent, and he lifted his eyes and looked, and saw 3 men were coming from a distance. And he rose up and ran to meet them, and he bowed down to them and brought them into his house. And he said to them, If I have now found favor in your sight, turn in and eat a piece of bread. And he pressed them, and they turned in, and he gave them water, and they washed their feet, and he placed them under a tree at the door of the tent. And Abraham ran and took a calf tender and good, and he hastened to kill it, and gave it to his servant Eliezer and to prepare. And Abraham came to Sarah in the tent, and he said to her, Make ready 3 measures of fine meal quickly, and knead it, and make cakes to cover pot containing the meat. And she did so. And Abraham hastened and brought before them butter and milk, beef and lamb, and he gave it to them to eat before the flesh of the calf was sufficiently done. And they ate. And when they had done eating, one said to him, I will return to you according to the time of the life, as Sarah and your wife shall have a son. And these men afterwards departed and went their ways to the places to which they were sent. And in those days all the people of Sodom and Gomorrah and all the whole 5 cities were exceedingly wicked and sinful against Yahuwah, and they provoked Yahuwah with their abominations, and they grew mightily in abominations as scoffing before Yahuwah. In those days their wickedness and crimes were great before Yahuwah. And in their land they had a very extensive valley, about a half a day's walk. In it there were fountains of water, and a great amount of greenery surrounding the water. And all the people of Sodom and Gomorrah went there 4 times in the year with their wives and children, and all belonging to them. And they rejoiced there with timbrels and dances. And at that time of rejoicing they would all rise and lay hold of their neighbors' wives, and some maiden daughters of their neighbor, and they enjoyed them, and each man saw his wife and daughters in the hands of his neighbor, and did not say a word. And they did so from morning to night, and afterwards they returned home, each man to his house, and each woman to her tent. So they always did 4 times in the year. And also when a stranger came to their cities and brought goods which he had purchased with the view to sell there, and the people of the cities would assemble, men, women, and children, young and old, to go to the man and take his goods by force, giving a little to each man, when there was an end to all the goods of the owner which he had brought into the land. And if the owner of the goods quarreled with them, saying, What is this deed which you have done to me? Then they would approach him one by one. Each would show him a little which they took, and taunt him, saying, I only took that little which you gave me. And when he heard this from them all, he would arise and go from them in sorrow and bitterness of being, and they would all arise and go after them, and drove them out of the city with great noise and tumult. And there was a man from the country of Elam who was leisurely going on the way, seated upon his donkey, which carried a fine blanket of dyed colors, and the blanket was bound with the rope on the donkey. And the man was on his journey, passing through the street of Sodom, when the sun went down in the evening, and he remained there in order to stay during the night, but no one would let him into his house. And at that time there was in Sodom a wicked man of evil plots, one skillful to do evil, and his name was Hadad. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the traveler in the street of the city, and he came to him and said, From where did you come, and where are you going? And the man said to him, I am traveling from Hebron to Elam, where I belong. And as I passed, the sun went down, and no one would allow me to enter his house, though I had bread and water, and also straw and food for my donkey, and am lacking nothing. And Hadad answered and said to him, All that you want shall be supplied by me, but you shall not stay in the street all night. And Hadad brought him into his house, and he took off the blanket from the donkey with the rope, and he brought him to his house, and he gave the donkey straw and food, while the traveler ate and drank in Hadad's house, and he stayed there that night. And in the morning the traveler rose early to continue his journey. And when Hadad said to him, Wait, refresh your heart with a piece of bread, and then go. And the man did so, and he remained with him, and they both ate and drank together during the day, when the man rose up to go. And Hadad said to him, See, now the day is declining. You had better remain all night, that your heart may be refreshed. And he pressed him so he stayed there all night, and on the second day he rose early to go away. And when Hadad pressed him, saying, refresh your heart with a piece of bread, and then go. And he remained and ate with him the second day also. And when the man arose up to continue his journey, and Hadad said to him, see now the day is declining, remain with me to refresh your heart, and in the morning rise early and go your way. And the man would not remain, but rose and saddled his donkey. And while he was saddling his donkey, the wife of Hadad said to her husband, see, this man has remained with us for 2 days, eating and drinking, and he has given us nothing. And now shall he go away from us without giving anything? And Hadad said to her, be silent. And the man saddled his donkey and and he asked Hadad to give him the rope and blanket to tie it on the donkey. And Hadad said to him, what are you saying? And he said to him, that you, my master, shall give me the rope and the blanket made with dyed collars, which laid up with you in your house to take care of. And Hadad answered the man, saying, this is the interpretation of your dream. The rope which you saw means that your life will be lengthened out like a cord. And having seen the blanket dyed with all kinds of colors means that you shall have a vineyard in which you will plant trees and all of all fruits. And the traveler answered, saying, not so, my master, for I was awake when I gave you the rope and also a blanket woven with dyed colors, which you took off my donkey to put them aside for me. And Hadad answered and said, indeed, I have told you interpretation of your dream, and it is a good dream, and it is the interpretation of it. And now the sons of men gave me 4 pieces of silver, and which is my charge for interpreting dreams. Of you and I required 3 pieces of silver. And the man was provoked at the words of Hadad, and he cried bitterly, and he brought Hadad to Serach, the judge of Sodom. And the man laid his cause before Serach the judge, and when Hadad replied, saying, it is not so, but so the matter stands. And the judge says to the traveler, this man Hadad tells you the truth, for he is famed in the cities for the accurate interpretations of dreams. And the man cried at the words of the judge. He said, not so, my master, for it was in the day that I gave him a rope and blanket which was on the donkey, in order to put them aside in his house. And they both disputed before the judge, the one saying, so the matter was, and the other declaring otherwise. And Hadad said to the man, give me 4 pieces of silver that I charge for my interpretations of dreams, and I will not make any allowance, and give me the expense of 4 meals that you ate in my house. And the man said to Hadad, truly I will pay you for what I ate in your house, only give me the rope and blanket which you laid up in your house. And Hadad replied before the judge and said to the man, did I not tell you the interpretation of your dream? Now the rope means that your days shall be prolonged like the cord, and the blanket which you have in your vineyard, in which you shall plant all kinds of fruit trees. Now this is the proper interpretation of your dream. Now give me the 4 pieces of silver that I require as a compensation, and I will make you no allowance. And the man cried at the words of Hadad, and they both quarreled before the judge. And the judge gave orders to his servants, who drove them harshly from the house. And they went away quarreling from the judge, and the people of Sodom heard them. And they gathered about them and cried out against the stranger, and they drove him harshly from the city. And the man continued his journey on his donkey with bitterness of being, lamenting and weeping. While he was going along, he wept at what befallen him in the corrupt city of Sodom. Chapter 19. And the cities of Sodom had 4 judges for 4 cities, and they were the 4 names: Sirach, the city of Sodom, Sarkad in Gomorrah, Zabnad in Admah, and Manon in Saboim. And Eliezer, the Abraham's servant, appointed to them different names, and he converted Serach to Sharked, and Sharked to Sekura, and Zabnak to Cozbeam, and Manon to Motzlodim. And by desire the four judges and the people of Sodom and Gomorrah had beds erected in the streets of the cities, for if a man came to these places, they laid hold of him and brought him to one of their beds, and by force made them lie in them. And as he lied down, 3 men would stand at his head and 3 at his feet to measure him by the length of the bed. If the man was way less than the bed, these 6 men would stretch him at each end, and when he cried out to them, they would not answer him. For if he was longer than the bed, they would draw together the 2 sides of the bed at each end until the man has reached the gates of death. And if he continues to cry out to them, saying that they would answer them, saying, so shall it be done to a man that comes to our land. And when men heard all these matters that the people of the cities of Sodom did, they refrained from coming there. And when a poor man came to their land, they would give him silver and gold, and send a call to the whole city not to give him a piece of bread to eat. For if the stranger should remain there some days and die from hunger, not having been able to obtain a piece of bread, then at his death all the people of the city would come and take their silver and gold which they have given to him. And those that could recognize the silver or gold which they had given it took him back, and at his death they also stripped him of his garments, and they would fight about them, and he that prevailed over his neighbor took them. And after that they would carry him and bury him under some of the shrubs in the desert, and they all did all the days to anyone that came to them and died in their land. And in that course of time, Sarah sent Eleazar to Sodom to see Lot to inquire about his welfare. And Eleazar went to Sodom and met a man of Sodom fighting with a stranger. And the man of Sodom stripped the poor man of all his clothes and went away. And the poor man cried to Eleazar and pleaded his favor because of what the man of Sodom had done to him. And he said to him, why do you act this way to the poor man who came to your land? And the man of Sodom answered Eleazar, saying, is this man your brother, or have the people of Sodom made you a judge this day that you speak about this man? And Eleazar strove with the man of Sodom because of the poor man. And when Eleazar approached to recover the poor man's clothes from the man of Sodom, he hastened with a stone and smote Eleazar on the forehead. And the blood flowed exceedingly from Eleazar's forehead. And when the man saw the blood, he caught hold of Eleazar, saying, give me my payment for having rid you of this bad blood that was in your forehead, for such is the custom and law in our land. And Eleazar said to him, you have wounded me and require to pay you your payment. And Eleazar would not listen to the words of the man of Sodom. And the man laid hold of Eleazar and brought him to Sarked, the judge of Sodom, for judgment. And the man spoke to the judge, saying, please, my master, so has this man done, and for I smote him with a stone, so that the blood flowed from his forehead, for he was unwilling to give me my payment. And the judge said to Eleazar, this man speaks truth to you. Give him his payment, for this is the custom in your land. And Eleazar heard the words of the judge, and he lifted up a stone and smote the judge, and the stone struck on his forehead, and the blood flowed exceedingly from the forehead of the judge. And Eleazar said, if this then is your custom in your land, give to this man what I should have given him, for this had been your decision, you decreed it. And Eleazar left the man of Sodom with the judge, and he went away. For when the sovereigns of Elam had fought against the sovereigns of Sodom, and the sovereigns of Elam captured all the property of Sodom, and they took Lot captive with his property. And when it was told to Abraham, he went and fought against the sovereigns of Elam, and he recovered from their hands all the property of Lot, as well as the property of Sodom. And at that time the wife of Lot bore him a daughter, and he called her name Peltith, saying, because Yahuwah had delivered him and his whole household from the sovereigns of Elam. And Peltith, the daughter of Lot, grew up, and one of the men of Sodom took her for a wife. And a poor man came to the city to seek a livelihood, and he remained in the city some days. And all the people of Sodom sent a call, as was their custom, not to give a man a piece of bread to eat until he dropped dead upon the earth, and they did so. And Peleth, the daughter of Lot, saw the man lying in the street, starved with hunger, and no one would give him any matter to keep him alive, and he was just upon the point of death. And her being was filled with pity because of the man, and she fed him secretly with bread for many days, and the being of this man was revived. And when she went out to fetch water, she put the bread in the water pitcher, and when she came to the place where the poor man was, she took bread from the pitcher and gave to him to eat. So she did many days. And all the people of Sodom and Gomorrah wondered how this man could bear starvation for so many days. And they said to each other, this can only be that he eats and drinks, for no man can bear starvation for so many days, or live as this man has, without even his appearance changing. And three men concealed themselves in the place where the poor man was stationed, to know who it was that brought him bread to eat. And Peleth, the daughter of Lot, went out that day to fetch water, and she put bread into her pitcher of water. And when she went to draw water by the poor man's place, she took out the bread from the pitcher and gave it to the poor man, and he ate it. And the three men saw that what Peleth had did for the poor man. They said to her, it is you then who has supported him, and therefore he has not starved, nor changed in appearance, nor died like the rest. And the three men came out of the place from which they were concealed, and they seized Peleth and the bread which was in the poor man's hand. And they took Peleth and brought her before the judges, and said to them, thus did she do, and it is she who supplied the poor man with bread, and so he did not die all this time. Now therefore declare to us the punishment due to this woman for having transgressed our law. And the people of Sodom and Gomorrah assembled and kindled a fire in the street of the city, and they took the woman and threw her into the fire, and she was burned to ashes. In the city of Admah there was a woman to whom they did the same. For a traveler came to the city of Admah to stay there all night, with the intention of going home in the morning. He sat the opposite of the door of the house of the young woman's father, to remain there as the sun has gone down, and he reached that place. And the young woman saw him sitting by the door of the house. And he asked her for a drink of water, and she said to him, who are you? And he said to her, I was walking on the way today and reached here when the sun went down, so I will stay here all night, and in the morning I will rise early and continue my journey. And the young woman went into the house and brought the man bread and water to eat and drink. And this matter became known to the people of Admah, and they assembled and brought the young woman before the judges, so that they should judge her for this deed. And the judge said, this judgment of death must pass upon this woman, because she transgressed our law, and therefore it is the decision concerning her. And the people of those cities assembled and brought out the young woman, and rubbed her with honey from head to foot, as the judge had decreed. And they placed her before a swarm of bees which had been in their hives, and the bees flew upon her and stung her, so that her whole body was swollen. And the young woman cried out because of the bees, but no man took notice of her or pitied her, and her cries went up to the heavens. And Yahuwah was provoked at this, and all the works of the cities of Sodom, for they had a great amount of food, and they had peace among them, and still would not sustain the poor and the needy. And in those days their evil doings and sins became great before Yahuwah. And Yahuwah sent two of the messengers that had come to Abraham's house to destroy Sodom and its cities. And the messengers rose up from the door of Abraham's tent after they had eaten and drunk. They had reached Sodom in the evening, and Lot was then sitting in the gate of Sodom. And when he saw them, he rose to meet them, and he bowed down to the ground. And he pressed them greatly and brought him to his house, and he gave them food, which they ate, and they stayed all night in his house. And the messenger said to Lot, Arise, go out from this place, you and all belonging to you, lest you be consumed in the iniquity of this city, for Yahuwah will destroy this place. And the messengers laid hold upon the hand of Lot, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hands of his children, and all belonging to him. And they brought him out and put him outside the cities. And they said to Lot, Escape for your life. And he fled, and all belonging to him. Then Yahuwah rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah and all these cities of sulfur and fire from Yahuwah out of the heavens. And he overthrew these cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities that which grew upon the ground. And Ado, the wife of Lot, looked back to see the destruction of the cities, for her compassion was moved because of her daughters who remained in Sodom, for they did not go with her. And when she looked back, she became a post of salt, and it is still in that place to this day. And the oxen which stood in that place daily licked up the salt to the end of their feet, and in the morning it would spring forth anew, and they still licked it up to this day. And Lot and the two of his daughters that remained with him fled and escaped from the cave of Adullam, and they remained there for some time. And Abraham rose early in the morning to see what has been done to the cities of Sodom, and he looked and saw a smoke of the cities going up like the smoke of the furnace. And Lot and his two daughters remained in the cave, and they made their father drink wine, and they lay with him, for they said there was no man upon the earth that could raise up seed from them, for they thought that the whole earth was destroyed. And they both laid with their father, and they conceived and bore sons. And the firstborn called the name of her son Moab, saying, From my father I have conceived them. And he is the father of the Moabites to this day. And also the younger called her son Ben-Ammi, for he is the father of the children of Ammon to this day. And after this, Lot and his two daughters went away from there, and he dwelt to the other side of the Yarden with his two daughters and their sons. And the sons of Lot grew up, and they went and took for themselves wives in the land of Canaan, for they brought forth children, and they were fruitful and multiplied. Chapter 20. At the time Abraham journeyed from the plain of Mamre, and he went to the land of the Philistines, and he dwelt in Gerar. And there in the 25th year of Abraham's being in the land of Canaan, in the 100th year the life of Abraham, and he came to Gerar in the land of the Philistines. And when they entered the land, he said to Sarah his wife, See, you are my sister to anyone that shall ask you, in order that we may escape the evil of the inhabitants of the land. And as Abraham was dwelling in the land of the Philistines, the servants of Abimelech, the sovereign of the Philistines, saw that Sarah was exceedingly good looking, and they asked Abraham concerning her, and he said, She is my sister. And the servants of Abimelech went to Abimelech, saying, A man from the land of Canaan is come to dwell in the land, for he has a sister that is exceedingly lovely. And Abimelech heard the words of his servants who praised Sarah to him. And Abimelech sent his officers, and they brought Sarah to the sovereign. And Sarah came to the house of Abimelech, and the sovereign saw that Sarah was good looking, and she pleased him exceedingly. And he approached her and said to her, What is this man to you with whom you came to our land? And Sarah answered and said, He is my brother. We came to from the land of Canaan to dwell wherever we could find a place. And Abimelech said to Sarah, See, my land is before you. Place your brother in any part of this land that pleases you, and it will be our duty to exalt and elevate him above all the people of the land, since he is your brother. And Abimelech sent for Abraham, and Abraham came to Abimelech. And Abimelech said to Abraham, See, I've given orders that you shall be honored as you desire because of your sister Sarah. And Abraham went out from the sovereign, and the sovereign's present came after them. And as evening time before men lie down to rest, the sovereign was sitting upon his throne, and a deep sleep fell upon him. And he laid on the throne and slept until morning. And he dreamed that a messenger of Yahuwah came to him with a drawn sword in his hand, and the messenger stood over Abimelech and sought to slay him with the sword. And the sovereign was afraid of his dream and said to the messenger, and what if have I sinned against you that you come to slay me with your sword? And the messenger answered and said to Abimelech, see, you die because of the woman which you brought into your house last night, for she is a married woman, the wife of Abraham, who came to your house. Now therefore that return that man his wife, for she is his wife, for you do not return her. Know that you will indeed die, and you all belonging to her. And on that night there was a great outcry in the land of the Philistines, and the inhabitants of the land saw the figure of a man standing with a drawn sword in his hand, and he smote the inhabitants of the land with a sword, continuing to smite them. And the messenger of Yahuwah smote the whole land of the Philistines at that night, and there was a great confusion on that night and on the following morning. And every womb was closed, and all their issues at the hand of Yahuwah was upon them because of Sarah, the wife of Abraham, whom Abimelech had taken. And in the morning Abimelech rose with fear and confusion, with a great dread, and he sent and had his servants called in, and related his dream to them, and the people were greatly afraid. And one man standing among the servants of the sovereign answered the sovereign, saying, O royal sovereign, restore this woman to her husband, for he is her husband. And for the same befell the sovereign of Egypt, and when this man came to Egypt. And he said concerning his wife, she is my sister, for such is his manner of doing when he comes to dwell in the land which he is a stranger. And Pharaoh sent and took this woman for a wife, and Yahuwah brought upon him grievous plagues until he returned the woman to her husband. Now therefore, O royal sovereign, know that we come to pass last night to the whole land, for there was a very great fear and great pain and lamentation. We know that it was because of the woman which you took. Now therefore, restore this woman to her husband, lest it should befall us, as it did to Pharaoh, the sovereign of Egypt, and his subjects, and that we may not die. And Abimelech hastened and called and had Sarah called for, and she came before him. And he had Abraham called for, and he came before him. And Abimelech said to him, what is this matter you have been doing, and saying, you are brother and sister, and I took this woman for a wife? And Abraham said, because I thought I would suffer death because of my wife. And Abimelech took flocks and herds, and male servants and female servants, and 1,000 pieces of silver, and he gave them to Abraham, and he returned Sarah to him. And Abimelech said to Abraham, see, the whole land is before you. Dwell in it wherever you shall choose. And Abraham and Sarah and his wife went out from the sovereign's presence with honor and respect, and they dwelt in the land, even in Gerar. And the inhabitants of the land of the Philistines and the sovereign's servants were still in pain through the plague of which the messenger had inflicted upon them the whole night because of Sarah. And Abimelech sent for Abraham, saying, pray now to your servants, to Yahuwah, that he may put away this death from among us. And Abraham prayed for the sake of Abimelech and his subjects, and Yahuwah heard the prayer of Abraham, and he healed Abimelech and all his subjects. All right, chapter 21. We got, we're almost done. We got actually up until chapter 28 to read. And it came to be at that time, at the end of the year of 4 months of Abraham's dwelling in the land of the Philistines in Gerar, and Yahuwah visited Sarah, and Yahuwah remembered her, and she conceived and bore a son to Abraham. And Abraham called the name of the son which was born to him, which Sarah bore to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac at 8 days old, as Yahuwah had commanded Abraham to do unto his seed after him. And Abraham was 100, and Sarah was 90 years old when Isaac was born to them. And the child grew up, and he was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. For Shem and Eber and all the great people of the land, and Abimelech the sovereign of the Philistines, and his servants, and Pichol the commander of his army, came to eat and drink and rejoice at the feast which Abraham made on the day of his son Isaac being weaned. And also Terah, the father of Abraham, and Nahor his brother, came from Haran, they and all belonging to them, and they greatly rejoiced on hearing that a son had been born to Sarah. And they came to Abraham, and they ate and drank at the feast which Abraham made on the day of Isaac being weaned. And Terah and Nahor rejoiced with Abraham, and they remained with him many days in the land of the Philistines. At that time Serug, son of Reu, died in the first year of the birth of Isaac, the son of Abraham. And all the days of Serug were 239 years, and he died. And Ishmael, the son of Abraham, grown up in those days, and he was 14 years old when Sarah bore Isaac to Abraham. And Yahuwah was with Ishmael, the son of Abraham, and he grew up and he learned to use the bow and became an archer. And when Isaac was 5 years old, he was sitting with Ishmael at the door of his tent. And Ishmael came to Isaac and seated himself opposite to him, and he took a bow and drew it and put the arrow in it and intended to slay Isaac. And Sarah saw the act which Ishmael desired to do to her son Isaac, and it grieved her exceedingly because of her son. And she sent for Abraham and said to him, Drive out this female servant and her son, for her son shall not be an heir to my son, for so he sought to do to him today. And Abraham listened to the voice of Sarah. And he rose early in the morning, and he took 12 loaves and a bottle of water, and he gave to Hagar, and sent her away with her son. And Hagar went with her son to the wilderness, and they dwelt in the wilderness of Haran with the inhabitants of the wilderness. And Ishmael was an archer, and he dwelt in the wilderness a long time. And afterwards he and his mother went to the land of Egypt, and they dwelt there. And Hagar took a wife for her son from Egypt, and her name was Meribah. And the wife of Ishmael conceived and bore 4 sons and 2 daughters. And afterwards Ishmael and his mother and his wife and children went and returned to the wilderness. And they made themselves tents in the wilderness, which they dwelt, and they continued to travel, and then rest monthly and yearly. And Yahuwah gave Ishmael flocks and herds and tents because of Abraham his father, and the man increased in cattle. And Ishmael dwelt in deserts and tents, traveling and resting for a long time, and he did not see the face of his father. Sometime after, Abraham said to Sarah his wife, I will go and see my son Ishmael, for I have a desire to see him, for I have not seen him for a long time. And Abraham rode on one of his camels to the wilderness to seek his son Ishmael, for he heard that he was dwelling in a tent in the wilderness with all belonging to him. And Abraham went to the wilderness, and he reached the tent of Ishmael about noon. And he asked after Ishmael, and he found the wife of Ishmael sitting in the tent with her children. And Ishmael, her husband, and his mother were not with him. And Abraham asked the wife of Ishmael, saying, Where has Ishmael gone? And she said, He has gone to the field to hunt. And Abraham was still mounted upon the camel, for he would not get off to the ground, for he had sworn to his wife Sarah that he would not get off of the camel. And Abraham said to Ishmael's wife, My daughter, give me a little water that I may drink, for I am weary from the journey. And Ishmael's wife answered and said to Abraham, We have neither water nor bread. And she continued sitting in the tent and did not notice Abraham, neither did she ask him who he was. But she was beating her children in the tent, and she was cursing them. And she also cursed her husband Ishmael and reproached him. And Abraham heard the words of Ishmael's wife and to her children, and he was very wroth and displeased. And Abraham called to the woman to come out to to him from the tent, and the woman came and stood opposite to Abraham, and Abraham was still mounted on the camel. And Abraham said to Ishmael's wife, when is your husband Ishmael returns home, say these words to him. A very old man from the land of the Philistines came here to seek you, and thus was his appearance and figure. And I did not ask him, for he was, seeing that you were not here. And he spoke to me and said, when Ishmael your husband returns, tell him thus did the man say, when you come home, put away this nail of the tent which you have placed here, and put another nail in its place. And Abraham finished his instructions to the woman, and he turned and went off on the camel homeward. And after that, Ishmael came from the chase, he and his mother, and returned to the tent. And his wife spoke those words to him. A very old man from the land of the Philistines came to seek you, and thus was his appearance and figure. I did not ask him who he was, and seeing you were not at home, he said to me, when your husband comes home, tell him, thus saith the old man, put away the nail of the tent which you have placed here, and place another nail in its place. And Ishmael heard the words of his wife, and he knew that it was his father, that his wife did not honor him. And Ishmael understood his father's words that he had spoken to his wife, and Ishmael listened to the voice of his father. And Ishmael drove out the woman, and she went away. And afterwards Ishmael went to the land of Canaan, and he took another wife, and he brought her to his tent to the place where he then dwelt. At the end of 3 years, Abraham said, I will go again and see Ishmael my son, for I have not seen him for a long time. And he rode on his camel and went to the wilderness, and he reached the tent of Ishmael about noon. And he asked after Ishmael, and his wife came out of the tent, and she said, he is not here, my master, for he has gone out to hunt in the fields and to feed the camels. And the woman said to Abraham, turn in, my master, into the tent and eat a piece of bread, for your being must be wearied because of the journey. And Abraham said to her, I will not stop, for I am in haste to continue my journey, but give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty. And the woman hastened and ran into the tent, and she brought out water and bread to Abraham, and she placed before him, and she urged him to eat. And he ate and drank, and his heart was refreshed, and she blessed his son Ishmael. As he finished the meal, and he blessed Yahuwah, and he said to Ishmael's wife, when Ishmael comes home, say these words to him. A very old man from the land of the Philistines came here and asked after you, and you were not here. And I brought him out bread and water, and he ate and drank, and his heart was refreshed. And he spoke those words to me. When Ishmael, your husband, comes home, say to him, the nail of the tent which you have is very good. Do not put it away from the tent. And Abraham finished instructing the woman, and he rode off to the home in the land of the Philistines. And Ishmael came to his tent, and his wife went out to meet him with joy and a cheerful heart. As she said to him, that an old man came here from the land of the Philistines, and this was his appearance, and he asked after you, and you were not here. So I brought out bread and water, and he ate and drank, and his heart was refreshed. And he spoke those words to me, when Ishmael, your husband, comes home, say to him, the nail of the tent which you have is very good. Do not put it away from the tent. And Ishmael knew that it was his father, and that his wife had honored him, and Yahuwah blessed Ishmael. Chapter 22. When Ishmael has risen up and took his wife and his children and all the cattle and all belonging to him, he journeyed from there and went to his father in the land of the Philistines. And Abraham related to Ishmael his son the matter of with the first wife that Ishmael took, according to what she did. And Ishmael and his children dwelt with Abraham many days in the land, and Abraham dwelt in the land of the Philistines for a long time. As the days increased and reached 26 years, and after that Abraham with his servants and all belonging to him went from the land of the Philistines and moved to a great distance. And they came near to Hebron, and they remained there. And the servants of Abraham dug wells of water, and Abraham and all belonging to him dwelt by the water. And the servants of Abimelech, the sovereigns of the Philistines, heard the report of Abraham's servants had dug wells in the water in the borders of the land. For they came and quarreled with the servants of Abraham, and they robbed them with great wealth which they have dug. And Abimelech, the sovereign of the Philistines, heard of this matter, and he with Pichol, the commander of his army, and 20 of his men came to Abraham. And Abimelech spoke to Abraham concerning his servants, and Abraham rebuked Abimelech concerning the well of which his servants had robbed him. And Abimelech said to Abraham, As Yahuwah lives, who created the whole earth, I did not fear the deed which my servants did to your servants until this day. And Abraham took 7 ewe lambs and gave them to Abimelech, saying, Please take these from my hands, that it may be a witness for me that I dug this well. And Abimelech took the 7 ewe lambs that which Abraham had given to him, for he had also given him cattle and herds in great amount. And Abimelech swore to Abraham concerning the well, and therefore he called that well Beersheba, for there they both swore an oath concerning it. And they both made a covenant in Beersheba. And Abimelech rose up to Pichol, the commander of the army, and all his men. And they returned to the land of the Philistines. And Abraham and all belonging to him dwelt in Beersheba, for he was in that land a long time. And Abraham planted a long grove in Beersheba, and he had made 4 gates for it facing the 4 sides of the earth. And he planted a vineyard in it, so that if a traveler came to Abraham, entered any gate which was on his way, he remained there and ate and drank and satisfied himself, and then departed. For the house of Abraham was always open to the sons of men that passed and returned, who came daily to eat and drink in the house of Abraham. And any man who had hunger came to Abraham's house, and Abraham would give him bread that might eat and drink and be satisfied. And anyone that came naked to his house, he would clothe with garments as he might choose, and give him silver and gold, and made known to him Yahuwah, who had created him in the earth. Abraham did this all his life. And Abraham, his children, and all belonging to him dwelt in Beersheba, and he placed his tent as far as Hebron. And Abraham's brother Nahor, and his fathers, and all belonging to him dwelt in Haran, for they did not come with Abraham to the land of Canaan. And the children were born to Nahor, which Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the sister of Sarah, Abraham's wife, bore to him. And these are the names of those that were born to him: Utz, Buz, Kemuel, Chesed, Hazo, Hildash, Yedlath, and Bethuel became 8 sons. And these are the children of Milcah, which she born to Nahor, Abraham's brother. And Nahor had a concubine, and her name was Reumah, and she also bore to Nahor, Teba, Gaham, Tahash, and Maacah, being 4 sons. And the children that were born to Nahor, and the 12 sons besides his daughters, they also had born to them in Haran. And the children of Utz, the firstborn of Nahor, were Abi, Hareth, Gadin, Melush, and Deborah their sister. And the sons of Buz were Barachel, Naamath, Shua, and Madanu. And the sons of Kemuel were Aram and Rehob. And the sons of Chesed were Anamelech, Meshai, Banan, Yephi. And the sons of Hazol were Pildash, Mahi, and Iphar. And the sons of Pildash were Arud, Hamam, Mered, and Malach. And the sons of Yedlath were Mushan, Kushan, and Mutsi. And the children of Bethuel were Sakar, Laban, and their sister Ribkah. And those are the clans of the children of Nahor, which were born to them in Haran. And Aram, the son of Kemuel, and Rehob his brother went away from Haran, and they found a valley in the land by the river Parah. And they built a city there, and they called the name of the city after the name of Pethor the son of Aram, and it is Aram Naharaim to this day. And the children of Chesed also went to dwell, and they found a place, and they went and they found a valley opposite to the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they built themselves a city there, and they called the name of the city Chesed, after the name of their father, and the land of Kasdim to this day. And Kasdim dwelt in that land, and they were fruitful and multiplied exceedingly. And Terah, the father of Nahor, and Abraham went to took another wife in his old age, and her name was Pelilah, and she conceived and bore him a son, and called his name Sobah. And Terah lived 25 years, and he brought forth Sobah. And Terah died in that year, that is, in the 35th year of the birth of Isaac, the son of Abraham. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and he was buried in Haran. And Sobah, the son of Terah, lived 30 years, and he brought forth Aram, Alith, and Merik. And Aram, the son of Sobah, the son of Terah, had 3 wives, and he brought forth 12 sons and 3 daughters. And Yahuwah gave to Aram, the son of Sobah, riches and possessions, and a great amount of cattle, and flocks and herds. And the man increased greatly. And Aram, the son of Zobah, and his brother and all his household journeyed from Haran, and they went to dwell there, and they should find a place, for their property was too great to remain in Haran, for they could not stop in Haran together with their brothers, the children of Nahor. And Aram, the son of Zobah, went with his brothers, and they found a valley at a distance towards the eastern country, and they dwelt there. And they also built a city there, and they called the name of it Aram, after the name of their eldest brother, that is Aram Zobah to this day. And Isaac, the son of Abraham, was growing up in those days, and Abraham his father taught him the way of Yahuwah, to know Yahuwah, and Yahuwah was with him. And Isaac was 37 years old, and Ishmael his brother was going about with him in the tent. And Ishmael boasted himself to Isaac, saying, I am 13 years old when Yahuwah spoke to my father to circumcise us, and I did according to the word of Yahuwah, which he spoke to my father, and I gave my being to Yahuwah, and I did not transgress his word, which he commanded my father. And Isaac answered Ishmael, saying, Why do you boast to me about this, about a little bit of your flesh which you took from your body, concerning which Yahuwah commanded you? As Yahuwah lives, the Almighty, of my father Abraham, if Yahuwah should say to my father, Take now your son Isaac and offer him as an offering before me, I would not refrain, but would joyfully consent to it. And Yahuwah heard the word that Isaac spoke to Ishmael, and it seemed good in the eyes of Yahuwah that he thought to try Abraham in this manner. And the day arrived when the sons of Yahuwah came and placed themselves before Yahuwah, and Satan also came with the sons of Yahuwah before Yahuwah. And Yahuwah said to Satan, From where do you come? And Satan answered Yahuwah and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And Yahuwah said to Satan, What is your word to me concerning all the children of the earth? And Satan answered Yahuwah and said, I have seen all the children of the earth who serve you and remember you when they require anything from you. And when you gave them the matter which they require from you, they sit at their ease and forsake you, and they remember you no more. Have you seen Abraham the son of Terah, who at first had no children, and he served you and erected altars to you wherever he came, and he brought up offerings upon them, and he proclaimed your name continually to all the children of the earth. And now that this son Isaac is born to him, he has forsaken you, and he has made a great feast for all the inhabitants of the land, but he has forgotten Yahuwah. For among all that he has done, he has brought you no offering, neither burnt offering nor peace offering, neither ox or lamb nor goat, of all that he has slaughtered on the day that his son was weaned. Even from that time of his son's birth until now, being 37 years, he built no altar before you, nor brought any offering to you, for he saw that you gave what he requested before you, and therefore forsook you. And Yahuwah said to Satan, have you thus considered my servant Abraham? For there is none like him upon the earth, a perfect and upright man before me, one that fears Yahuwah and avoids evil. And as I live, where I say to him, bring up Isaac your son before me, and he would not withhold him from me, much more if I told him to bring up a burnt offering before me from his flock and herds. And Satan answered Yahuwah and said, speak now to Abraham, then as you have said, you will see whether he will this day transgress and cast aside your words. Chapter 23. At the time the word of Yahuwah came to Abraham, and he said to him, Abraham, and he said, here I am. And he said to him, take now your son, your only son, whom you love, even Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which shall be shown to you. And there will you see a cloud in the esteem of Yahuwah. And Abraham said within himself, how shall I separate my son Isaac from Sarah his mother, in order to offer him as a burnt offering before Yahuwah? And Abraham came to the tent, and he sat before Sarah his wife, and he spoke these words to her. My son Isaac is grown, and for some time he had not studied the service of Yahuwah, and now tomorrow I will go to bring him to Shem and Eber his son, and there he will learn the ways of Yahuwah, and they will teach him to know Yahuwah as well as to know when he prays continually before Yahuwah, and he will answer him, and therefore will he know the way of serving Yahuwah. As Sarah said, you have spoken well. Go, my master, do to him as you have said, but do not remove him a great distance from me, nor let him remain there too long, for my being is bound with his being. And Abraham said to Sarah, my daughter, let us pray to Yahuwah that he may do good with us. And Sarah took her son Isaac, and he stayed there all night with her, and she kissed and embraced him and gave him instructions until morning. And she said to him, O my son, how can my being separate itself from you? And she still kissed him and embraced him, and she gave Abraham instructions concerning him. And Sarah said to Abraham, O my master, take heed of your son, keep your eyes upon him, for I have no other son nor daughter but him. Oh, forsake him not. If he is hungry, give him bread. If he is thirsty, give him water to drink. Do not let him go on foot, neither let him sit in the sun. Neither let him go by himself on the way, neither force him from whatever he may desire, but to do to him as he may say to you. And Sarah wept bitterly the whole night for the sake of Isaac, and she gave him instructions till morning. And in the morning Sarah selected a very fine and good-looking garment from those garments that she had in the house that Abimelech had given to her. And she dressed Isaac her son with it, and she put a turban on his head, and she enclosed the precious stone on the top of the turban, and she gave them provision of the journey. And they went forth, and Isaac went with his father Abraham, and some of their servants accompanied them to see them along the way. And Sarah went out with them, and she accompanied them on the way to set them off. And they said to her, return to the tent. And when Sarah heard the words of her son Isaac, she wept bitterly, and Abraham her husband wept with her, for their son wept with them a great weeping. And those who went with them also wept greatly. And Sarah caught hold of her son Isaac, and she held him in her arms, and she embraced him and continued to weep with him. And Sarah said, who knows if after this day I shall ever see you again? And they still wept together, Abraham, Sarah, and Isaac, and they all those that accompanied them on the way wept with them. And Sarah afterwards turned away from her son, weeping bitterly, and all her male servants and female servants returned with her to the tent. And Abraham went with Isaac his son to offer him as a burnt offering before Yahuwah, as he had commanded him. And Abraham took two of his young men with him, and Ishmael the son of Hagar, and Eliezer his servant, and they went together with them. And while they were walking on the way, the young men spoke those words to themselves. And Ishmael said to Eliezer, now my father Abraham is going with Isaac to offer him as a burnt offering to Yahuwah as he had commanded him. And now when he returns, he will give to me all that he possesses to inherit after him, for I am his firstborn. And Eliezer answered Ishmael and said, indeed, Abraham drove you away with your mother, and swore that you would not inherit any matter of all he possesses. And to whom will he give all that he has, and with all his treasures? But to me, his servant, who has been trustworthy in his house, to who has served night and day, and has done all that he desired to me. And he will bequeath all that he possesses to me at his death. And while Abraham was proceeding with his son Isaac along the way, Satan came and appeared to Abraham in a form of a very aged man, and humble and of lowly spirit. And he approached Abraham and said to him, are you stupid or senseless that you go to do this matter today to your only son? For Yahuwah gave you a son in your latter days and your old age, and will you go and slaughter him this day? For he committed no violence, and will you cause the being of your only son to perish from the earth? Do you not know and understand that this matter cannot be from Yahuwah? For Yahuwah cannot do to man for such evil upon the earth to say to him, go slaughter your child. And Abraham heard this and knew that it was the word of Satan, who attempted to draw him aside from the way of Yahuwah. But Abraham would not listen to the voice of Satan, and Abraham rebuked him so that he went away. And Satan returned and came to Isaac, and he appeared to Isaac in the form of a young man, handsome and well favored. And he appeared to Isaac and said to him, do you not know and understand what your foolish old father brings you to slaughter this day for naught? Now therefore, my son, do not listen nor attend to him, for he is a foolish old man, and do not let your precious being and good-looking figure be lost from the earth. And Isaac heard this and said to Abraham, have you heard, my father, which this man has spoken, even thus he has spoken? And Abraham answered his son Isaac and said to him, take heed of him, but do not listen to his words, nor attend to him, for he is Hasatan, endeavoring to draw us aside this day from the commands of Yahuwah. And Abraham again rebuked Satan, and Satan went from him. And seeing he could not prevail over them, he had hid himself from them. And he went and passed before them on the way, and he transformed himself to a large stream of water on the way. And Abraham and Isaac and his two young men reached that place, and they saw a stream large and powerful as the mighty waters. And they entered the stream and passed into it, and the waters at first reached their legs. And they went deeper into the stream, and the waters reached up to their necks, and they were all afraid because of the water. And while they were going over the stream, Abraham recognized that place, for he knew that there was no water there before. And Abraham said to his son Isaac, I know this place in which was no stream nor water. Now therefore it is Satan who does all this to us. Now draw us aside this day from the commandments of Yahuwah. And Abraham rebuked him and said, Yahuwah rebuke you, O Satan. Be gone from us, for we go by the commandments of Yahuwah. And Satan was afraid of the voice of Abraham, and he went away from them, and the place became dry land as it was at first. And Abraham went with Isaac towards the place that Yahuwah had told him. And on the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place at a distance which Yahuwah had told them of. And a column of fire appeared to him and reached from the earth to the heavens, and a cloud of esteem upon the mountain. And the esteem of Yahuwah was seen in the cloud. And Abraham said to Isaac, my son, do you see in that mountain which we see at a distance, that which I see upon it? And Isaac answered and said to his father, I see, and look, a column of fire and a cloud, and the esteem of Yahuwah is seen upon the cloud. And Abraham knew that his son Isaac was accepted before Yahuwah for a burnt offering. And Abraham said to Eliezer, to Ishmael his son, do you also see that which we see upon the mountain, which is at the distance? And they answered and said, we see nothing more than like the other mountains of the earth. And Abraham knew that they were not accepted before Yahuwah to go with them. And Abraham said to them, stay here with the donkey while Isaac, my son, and I go over to the mountain and worship there before Yahuwah, and then return to you. And Eliezer and Ishmael remained in that place as Abraham had commanded. And Abraham took wood for the burnt offering and placed it upon his son Isaac. And he took the fire and the knife, and they both went to that place. And while they were going along, Isaac said to his father, look, I see here the fire and wood, but where then is the lamb that is to be the burnt offering before Yahuwah? And Abraham answered his son Isaac, saying, Yahuwah has made choice of you, my son, to be a perfect burnt offering instead of the lamb. And Isaac said to his father, I will do all that Yahuwah spoke to you with joy and cheerfulness of heart. And Abraham said further to Isaac his son, is there in your heart any thought or counsel concerning this which is not proper? Please tell me, my son. O my son, do not conceal it from me. And Isaac answered his father Abraham and said to him, O my father, as Yahuwah lives, as your being lives, there is nothing in my heart to cause me to deviate either to the right or to the left from the word that he has spoken to you. Neither limb nor muscle has moved or stirred at this, nor is there in my heart any thought of or evil counsel concerning this. But I am of joyful and cheerful heart in this matter, and I say, favor is Yahuwah, who has this day chosen me to be a burnt offering before him. And Abraham greatly rejoiced at the words of Isaac, and they went on together and came to that place that Yahuwah has spoken of. And Abraham approached to build the altar in that place, and Abraham was weeping. And Isaac took stones and mortar until they had finished building the altar. And Abraham took the wood and placed it in order on the altar which he had built. And he took his son Isaac and bound him in order to place him upon the wood which was on the altar to slay him for a burnt offering before Yahuwah. And Isaac said to his father, bind me safely, and then place me upon the altar, lest I should turn and move, and break loose from the force of the knife upon my flesh, and thereof profane the burnt offering. And Abraham did so. And Isaac said further to his father, O my father, when you have slain me and burnt me for an offering, take with you that which remains of my ashes, and bring to Sarah my mother, and say to her, this is the sweet smelling fragrance of Isaac. But do not tell her this if she should sit near a well or upon any high place, lest she should cast her being after me and die. And Abraham heard the words of Isaac, and he lifted up his voice and wept when Isaac spoke those words. And Abraham's tears gushed down upon Isaac his son, and Isaac wept bitterly. And he said to his father, hasten, O my father, and do with me the will of Yahuwah that he has commanded you. And the hearts of Abraham and Isaac rejoiced at this which Yahuwah had commanded them. But the eye wept bitterly while the heart rejoiced. And Abraham bound his son Isaac and placed him on the altar upon the wood. And Isaac stretched out his neck upon the altar before his father. And Abraham stretched out his hand to take the knife to slay his son as a burnt offering before Yahuwah. And at that time the messengers of favor came before Yahuwah and spoke to him concerning Isaac, saying, O Yahuwah, you are a compassionate sovereign, showing favor over all that you have created in the heavens and in the earth, and you support them all. Therefore give ransom and redemption instead of your servant Isaac, and pity and compassion on Abraham and Isaac his son, who are this day performing your commands. Have you seen, O Yahuwah, how Isaac, the son of Abraham, your servant, is bound down to the slaughter like a beast. Now therefore let your compassion be roused for them, O Yahuwah. And at that time Yahuwah appeared to Abraham and called to him from the heavens and said to him, do not lay your hand upon the boy, neither do any manner to him. For now I know that you revere Yahuwah in performing this act and not withholding your son and your only son from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and see, a ram was caught in a thicket by its horns, and that was the ram which Yahuwah has created in the earth in the day he has made the earth and the heavens. And Yahuwah had prepared this ram from that day to be a burnt offering instead of Isaac. And the ram was advancing towards Abraham when Satan caught a hold of it and entangled its horns in the thicket, that it might not advance to Abraham, in order that Abraham might slay his son. And Abraham, seeing the ram, advanced towards it, but Satan withheld it and took it and brought it before the altar. And he loosened his son Isaac from his binding, and he put the ram in its place. And Abraham killed the ram upon the altar and offered it as a burnt offering in the place of his son Isaac. And Abraham sprinkled some of the blood of the ram on the altar, and he lifted his voice and said, this is in the place of my son. May this be considered this day as the blood of my son before Yahuwah. And all that Abraham did on this occasion by the altar, he would lift up his voice and say, this is in the place of my son. May it be considered this day before Yahuwah in the place of my son. And Abraham finished the whole of service by the altar, and the service was accepted before Yahuwah, and it was accounted as if it had been Isaac. And Yahuwah uh, favored Abraham and his seed on that day. And Satan went to Sarah, and he appeared to her in the form of an old man, very humble and meek. And Abraham was still occupied with the burnt offering before Yahuwah. And he said to her, do you not know all the work that Abraham has done to your only son to this day? For he took Isaac and built an altar and killed him and offered him in the burnt offering on the altar. And Isaac cried and wept before his father, but he did not look to him, neither did he have compassion on him. And Satan repeated those words, and he went away from her. And Sarah heard all the words of Satan, and she thought of him to be an old man from among the sons of man, who had been with her son, and had come and told her those matters. And Sarah lifted up her voice and wept and cried out bitterly because of her son. And she threw herself on the ground, and she cast dust upon her head. And she said, oh, my son Isaac, my son, oh, that I had died this day instead of you. And she continued to weep and said, it grieves me for you, O my son Isaac, that I had died this day in your place. And she still continued to weep and said, it grieves me for you after I have reared you and brought you up. Now my joy is turned into mourning over you, that I had a longing for you and cried and prayed to Yahuwah till I bore you at 90 years old. And now you have served this day for the knife and the fire to be made an offering. But I console myself with you, my son, in it being the word of Yahuwah, for you perform the command of Yahuwah. And for who has transgressed the word of Yahuwah in those in whose hands is the being of every living creature? You are just, O Yahuwah, for in all your works you are good and righteous. For I also rejoice in your word which you commanded, while my eyes weep bitterly and my heart rejoices. And Sarah laid her head upon the bosom of one of her female servants, and she became still as stone. And she afterwards rose up about making inquiries till she came to Hebron. And she inquired of all those whom she met walking on the way, but no one could tell her what has befell her son. And she came with her female servants and male servants to Karath Arba, which is in which is in Hebron, and she asked concerning her son, and she remained there until she sent some of her servants to seek where Abraham had gone with Isaac. And they went to seek him in the house of Shem and Eber, but they could not find him, and they sought throughout the land, but he was not there, and not dead. And when she heard the word, her joy was so exceedingly violent for the sake of her son, that her being went out through her joy, and she died and was gathered to her people. And then when Abraham had finished his service, she returned with his son Isaac to his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and they came home. And Abraham sought for Sarah and could not find her, and she made inquiries concerning her. And they said to him, she went as far as Hebron to seek you both where you had gone, for thus she was informed. And Abraham and Isaac went to her in Hebron, for they found that she was dead. They lifted up their voices and wept bitterly over her. And Isaac fell upon his mother's face and wept over her. And she said, "O my mother, how have you left me for where you have gone? How have you left me?" And Abraham and Isaac wept greatly, and all their servants wept with them because of Sarah, and they mourned over her a great and grievous mourning. Chapter 24. And the life of Sarah was 127 years old as Sarah died, and Abraham rose up from before his dead to seek a burial place to bury his wife Sarah. And he went and spoke to the children of Heth, the inhabitants of the land, saying, I am a stranger and a sojourner with you in your land. Give me a possession for a burial place in your land, that I may bury my dead from before me. And the children of Heth said to Abraham, See, this land is before you in the choicest of our burial places to bury your dead, for no man shall withhold you from burying your dead. And Abraham said to them, If you are agreeable to this, go and ask for me from Ephron, the son of Sohar, requesting that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which is at the end of his field, and I will purchase it from him for whatever he desires for it. And Ephron dwelt among the children of Heth, and they went and called for him, and they came before Abraham. And Ephron said to Abraham, See, all that you require your servant will do. And Abraham said, No, but I will buy the cave of the field which you have for value, in order that it may be for a possession, for a burial place forever. And Ephron answered and said, See, the field and the cave are before you, give whatever you desire. And Abraham said, Only at full value will I buy it from your hand, and from the hands of those that go into the gate of your city, and from the hand of your seed forever. And Ephron and all his brothers heard this, and Abraham weighed to Ephron 400 shekels of silver into the hands of Ephron, and into the hands of all his brothers. And Abraham wrote this matter, and he wrote it and witnessed it with 4 witnesses. And these are the names of the witnesses: Amigal, the son of Abishna, the Hittite, and Adihoram, the son of Ashunach, the Hivite, and Abdon, the son of Aharam, the Gomerite, and Bakdil, the son of Abudish, the Sidonian. And Abraham took the book of the purchase and placed it in his treasures. And these are the words that Abraham wrote in the book, namely, the cave of the field of Abraham brought to Ephron the Hittite, and from his seed, and from those that go out to his city, and from their seed forever, are to be a purchase to Abraham and to his seed, and to those that go forth from his loins, for a possession of a burial place forever. And he put a seal on it and witnessed it with witnesses. And the field of the cave that was in it and all that place was made secure to Abraham and to his seed after him from the children of Heth. And see, it is before Mamre and Hebron, which is in the land of Canaan. And after this, Abraham buried his wife Sarah there, and that place and all its boundary became to Abraham and to his seed as a possession for a burial place. And Abraham buried Sarah with ceremony, as observed at the burial of sovereigns, as she was buried in very fine and attractive garments. And her coffin was Shem and his sons Eber and Abimelech, together with Aner, Ishkol, and Mamre, and all the noblemen of the land followed her coffin. And in the days of Sarah were 127 years, and she died. And Abraham made a great and grievous mourning, and he performed the custom of mourning for 7 days. And all the inhabitants of the land comforted Abraham and Isaac his son for the sake of Sarah. And when the days of their mourning passed by, Abraham sent his son Isaac away, and he went to the son of Shem, or the house of Shem and Eber, to learn the ways of Yahuwah and his Torah. And Abraham remained there 3 years. And at that time, Abraham rose up with all his servants, and they went and returned homeward to Beersheba. And Abraham and all his servants remained in Beersheba. And at the turn of the year, Abimelech, the sovereign of the Philistines, died in that year, for he was 193 years old at his death. And Abraham went with his people to the land of the Philistines, and they comforted the whole household and all his servants. And he then turned and went home. And it came to be, and after the death of Abimelech, that the people of Gerar took Ben Malik his son, and he was only 12 years old, and they made him sit in the place of his father. And they called his name Abimelech after the name of his father, for thus was their custom to do in Gerar. And Abimelech reigned instead of Abimelech his father, and he sat upon his throne. And Lot the son of Haran also died in those days, in the 39th year of the life of Isaac. And all the days of Lot lived was 140 years, and he died. And these are the children of Lot, and they were born to him by his daughters. The name of the firstborn was Moab, and the name of the second was Ben-Ammi. And the two sons of Lot went to took them for themselves wives from the land of Canaan, and they bore children to them. And the children of Moab were Ed, Maon, Tarsus, and Conwil, 4 sons. And these are the fathers of the children of Moab to this day. And all the clans of the children of Lot went and dwelt wherever they would settle, and they were fruitful and increased abundantly. And they went and built themselves cities in the lands where they dwelt, and they called the names of the cities which they built after their own names. And Nahor the son of Terah, brother to Abraham, died in those days, in the 40th year of the life of Isaac. And all the days of Nahor were 172 years, and he died and was buried in Haran. And when Abraham heard that his brother was dead, he grieved sadly. He called Eliezer his head servant to give him orders concerning his house, and he came and stood before him. And Abraham said to him, See, I am old, I do not know the day of my death, for I am advanced in days. Now therefore rise up, go forth, and do not take a wife for my son from this place and from this land and from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom we dwell, but go to the land to my birthplace and take from there a wife for my son. And Yahuwah of the heavens and the earth, who took me from my father's house, who brought me to this place, and said to me, To your seed I will give this land to an inheritance forever. And he will send his messenger before you and prosper your way, and that you may obtain a wife for my son, from my clan, and from my father's house. And the servant answered his master Abraham and said, See, I go to your birthplace, to your father's house, and take a wife for your son from there. But if the woman is not willing to follow me to this land, shall I take your son back to the land of your birthplace? And Abraham said to him, Take heed that you do not bring my son there again. For Yahuwah, before whom I have walked, I will send his messenger before you and prosper your way. And Eleazar did as Abraham ordered him. And Eleazar swore to Abraham his master upon this matter. And Eleazar rose up and took 10 camels from the camels of his master, and 10 men from his master's servants with him. And they rose up and went to Haran, the city of Abraham and Nahor, in order to take a wife for Isaac the son of Abraham. And while they were gone, Abraham sent to the house of Shem and Eber, and they brought from there his son Isaac. And Isaac came home to his father's house to Beersheba, while Eleazar and his men came to Haran, and they stopped in the city by the watering place, and he made his camels to kneel down by the water, and they remained there. And Eleazar, Abraham's servant, prayed and said, O Yahuwah of Abraham my master, please meet before me this day and show kindness to my master. You shall appoint this day a wife from my master's son from this clan. And Yahuwah listened to the voice of Eleazar, and for the sake of his servant Abraham, he encountered the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, the brother of Abraham, and Eleazar came to her house. And Eleazar related to them all concerning him, that he was Abraham's servant, and they greatly rejoiced with him. And they all favored Yahuwah, who brought this matter about, and they gave him Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, as a wife to Isaac. And a young woman was a very attractive appearance, as she was a maiden, and Rebekah was 10 years old in those days. And Bethuel and Laban and his children made a feast on that night, and Eleazar and his men came and ate and drank and rejoiced there on that night. And Eleazar rose up in the morning, and the men that were with him, and he called to his whole household of Bethuel, saying, Send me away that I may go to my master. And they rose up and sent away Rebekah and her nurse Deborah and the daughter of Uts, and they gave her silver and gold and male servants and female servants, and they favored her. And they sent Eleazar away with his men, and the servants took Rebekah, and he went and returned to his master in the land of Canaan. And Isaac took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he brought her to his tent. And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, the daughter of his uncle Bethuel, for the wife. Chapter 25. And it came to be at that time that Abraham again took a wife in his old age, and her name was Keturah, from the land of Canaan. And she bore unto him Zimron, Yekshan, Midian, and Yishbak, Shua, being 6 sons. And the children of Zimrod were Abihen, Molik, and Narim. And the sons of Yakshan were Sheba and Dadan, and the sons of Medan were Amida, Joab, Gohi, Elisha, and Nothak. The sons of Midian were Ephah, Epher, Hanak, Abida, and Eldah. And the sons of Yeshbak were Mikro, Behodua, and Tutor. And the sons of Shua were Bildad, Mamdad, Muna, and Memban. And these are the clans of the children of Keturah, the Canaanite woman, which she bore to Abraham, the Hebrew. And Abraham sent all these ways and gave them gifts, and they went away from his son Isaac to dwell wherever they found a place. And all these went to the mountain at the east, and they built themselves 6 cities, which they dwell to this day. But the children of Sheba and Dedan and the children of Yokshan and their children did not dwell with their brothers in those cities, but they journeyed and pitched their tents in the lands and the wilderness to this day. And the children of Midian, the son of Abraham, went to the east of the land of Cush, where they found a large valley in the eastern country, and they remained there and built a city, and they dwelt in it. That is the land of Midian to this day. And Midian dwelt in the city which he built, he and his 5 sons, and all belonging to him. And these are the names of the sons of Midian, according to their names of the cities: Ephah, Epher, Enoch, Abda, and Eldah. And the sons of Ephah were Methach, Meshar, Abi, and Sawuna. And the sons of Ephah were Ephron, Sor, Alaron, and Midian. And the sons of Hanak were Reuel, Rechem, Azi, Elishub, and Elad. And the sons of Abidah were Hor, Melud, Karuri, Molki. And the sons of Eldah were Mikher and Reba and Malchiah and Gobel. And these are the names of the Midianites according to their clans. Afterwards, the clans of Midian spread throughout the land of Midian. And these are the generations of Ishmael, the son of Abraham, whom Hagar, Sarah's female servant, bore to Abraham. Ishmael took a wife from the land of Egypt, and her name was Ribkah, and the same as Meribah. And Ribkah bore unto Ishmael Nabaioth, Kedar, Adbeel, Midsam, and their sister Basamath. And Ishmael drove away his wife Ribkah, and she went from him and returned to Egypt to the house of her father, and she dwelt her, for she had been very evil in the sight of Ishmael, in the sight of his father Abraham. And afterwards Ishmael took a wife from the land of Canaan, and her name was Malkuth, and she bore to him Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Yetzer, Naphish, and Kadamah. And the sons of Ishmael, these were their names, being 12 princes according to their nations. The clans of Ishmael afterwards spread out, and Ishmael took his children and all the property that he had gained, together with the beings of his household, all belonging to him. And they went to dwell, and they should find a place. And they went and dwelt near the wilderness of Paran. Their dwelling was from Hawilah to Shur, to before Egypt, as you come toward Ashur or Assyria. And Ishmael and his sons dwelt in the land, and they had children born to them, and they were fruitful and increased abundantly. And these are the names of the sons of Nebaioth, the firstborn of Ishmael: Mend, Send, Menyon. And the sons of Kedar were Alon, Kesem, Hamad, and Eli. And the sons of Adbeel were Hamad and Yabin. And the sons of Mibsan were Obadiah, Ebed Melech, and Yerush. And these are the clans of the children of Ribkah, the wife of Ishmael. And the sons of Mishma, the son of Ishmael, were Shammua, Zacharon, and Obed. And the sons of Duma were Chesed, Eli, Machmad, and Emed. And the sons of Massa were Malon, Mula, and Ebedon. And the sons of Hadad were Azur, Midzar, and Ebed-Melech. And the sons of Tema were Shear, Sadon, and Yokel. And the sons of Yerter were Merith, Yaish, Allo, and Paloth. And the sons of Naphish were Aded Temed, Abi Yasaph, and Mir. And the sons of Kedemah were Kalip, Tati, and Omer. These were the children of Malkuth, the wife of Ishmael, according to their clans. And these are the clans of Ishmael according to their generations, and they dwelt in those lands wherein they had built the cities to this day. And Ribkah, the daughter of Bethuel, the wife of Abraham's son Isaac, was barren in those days, and she had no offspring. And Isaac dwelt with his father in the land of Canaan, and Yahuwah was with Isaac. And Arpachshad, the son of Shem, the son of Noah, died in those days in the 48th year of the life of Isaac. And all the days of Arpachshad lived were 438 years, and he died. Chapter 26. In the 59th year of the life of Isaac, the son of Abraham, Rebekah's wife was still barren in those days. And Rebekah said to Isaac, Truly I have heard, my master, that your mother Sarah was barren in her days until my master Abraham, your father, prayed for her, and she conceived by him. Now therefore stand up and pray also to Yahuwah, and he will hear your prayer and remember us through his compassions. And Isaac answered his wife Rebekah, saying, Abraham has already prayed for me to Yahuwah to multiply his seed. Now therefore this barrenness to us must proceed from you. And Rebekah said to him, But arise now also and pray, that Yahuwah may hear your prayer and grant me children. And Isaac listened to the words of his wife, and and his wife rose up and went to the land of Moriah and prayed there to seek Yahuwah. And they had reached that place, and Isaac stood up and prayed to Yahuwah for the sake of his wife, because she was barren. And Isaac said, O Yahuwah, of the heavens and the earth, whose goodness and compassions fill the earth, you took my father from his father's house, from his birthplace, and brought him to this land, and said to him, To your seed I will give this land. And you promised him and declared to him, I will multiply your seed as the stars of the heavens, as the sands of the sea. Now may take your words to be verified, which you spoke to my father. For you are Yahuwah, our Father, our eyes are towards you. Give us the seed of man, and you promise us, and you are Yahuwah, our Father, and our eyes are directed towards you alone. And Yahuwah heard the prayer of Isaac, the son of Abraham, and Yahuwah was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. And in the 7 months after, the children struggled together within her, and it pained her greatly, that she was weary because of them. And she said to all the women who were then in the land, Did such a matter came upon you as it has to me? And they said to her, No. And she said to them, Why am I alone in this among all the women that are on the earth? And she went to the land of Moriah to seek Yahuwah because of this. And she went to Shem and Eber his son to make inquiries of them in this manner. And they should seek Yahuwah in this manner respecting her. And she also asked Abraham to seek and inquire of Yahuwah all that had befallen her. And they all inquired of Yahuwah concerning this matter, and they brought her word from Yahuwah and told her, two children are in your womb, 2 nations shall rise from them. One nation shall be stronger than the other, and the greater shall serve the younger. And when her days be delivered were completed, she knelt down, and see, there were twins in her womb, as Yahuwah had spoken to her. And at first, the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and all the people of the land called his name Esau, saying, This one was made complete from the womb. And after that came his brother, and his hand took a hold of Esau's heel. Therefore they called his name Jacob. And Isaac the son of Abraham was 60 years old when he brought them forth. And the boys grew up to their 15th year, and they came among the company of men. And Esau was a crafty and deceitful man, and an expert hunter in the field. And Jacob was a complete man and wise, dwelling in tents, feeding flocks, and learning the Torah of Yahuwah and the commands of his father and mother. And Isaac and the children of his household dwelt with his father Abraham in the land of Canaan, as Yahuwah had commanded them. And Ishmael the son of Abraham went with all his children and all belonging to them, and they returned there to the land of Hawalel, and they dwelt there. And all the children of Abraham's concubines went and dwelt the land of the east, for Abraham had sent them away from his son, and had given them presents, and they went away. And Abraham gave all that he had to his son Isaac, and he also gave him all his treasures. And he commanded him, saying, Do you not know and understand? Yahuwah is Yahuwah in the heavens and the earth, and there is no other beside him. For it is he who took me from my father's house and from my birthplace, and gave me all the delights upon the earth. He who delivered me from the counsel of the wicked, and in him I trusted. And he brought me to this place, and delivered me from Ur-Kasdim, and he said to me, To your seed will I give all these lands, and I shall inherit them when they keep my commands, my laws, and my right rulings I have commanded you, and I shall command them. Now therefore, my son, listen to my voice and keep the commandments of Yahuwah, which I commanded you. Do not turn from the right way, either to the right or to the left, in order that it may be well with you and your children after you forever. And remember the wonderful works of Yahuwah and his kindness that he has shown to us, in having delivered us from the hands of our enemies. And Yahuwah has caused them to fall into our hands. Now therefore keep all that I have commanded you, and do not turn away from the commandments of Yahuwah, and serve none beside him, in order that it may be well with you and your seed after you. And you teach your children and your seed the Torah of Yahuwah and his commandments, and teach them the upright way in which they should go, in order that it might be well with them forever. And Isaac answered his father and said to him, that which my masters commanded, that I will do, that I will not depart from the commands of Yahuwah, and I will keep all that he has commanded me. And Abraham favored his son Isaac and also his children, and Abraham taught Jacob the instruction of Yahuwah in his ways. And it came to be at that time that Abraham died in the 15th year of the life of Jacob and Esau and the sons of Isaac. And all the days of Abraham were 175 years, and he died and was gathered to his people at a good old age, and old and satisfied with days. And Isaac and Ishmael his sons buried him. And the inhabitants of Canaan heard that Abraham was dead, and they all came with their sovereigns and princes and their men to bury Abraham. And all the inhabitants of the land of Haran, and the clans of the house of Abraham, and all the princes of nobles, and the sons of Abraham and the concubines all came and heard of Abraham's death, and they returned to Abraham's kindness and comforted Isaac his son, and they buried Abraham in the cave which brought from Ephron the Hittite, and his children for a possession for a burial place. And all the inhabitants of Canaan and all those who had known Abraham wept for Abraham a whole year, and the men and women mourned over him. And all the little children and all the inhabitants of the land wept for the sake of Abraham, for Abraham had been good to them all, and because he had been upright with Yahuwah and men. And there arose not a man who revered Yahuwah like Abraham, for he had feared Yahuwah from his youth, and served Yahuwah, and he had gone in all his ways during his life, and from childhood to the day of his death. And Yahuwah was with him, and delivered him from the counsel of Nimrod and his people. And when he fought against the 4 sovereigns of Elam, and he conquered them. And he brought all the children of the earth to the service of Yahuwah, and he taught them all the ways of the Yahuwah, and caused them to know Yahuwah. And he formed a grove, and he planted a vineyard in it, and he had always prepared meat and drink in his tent to those that passed through the land, that they might satisfy themselves in his house. And Yahuwah delivered the whole earth because of Abraham. And it came to be after the death of Abraham that Yahuwah favored his son Isaac and his children. And Yahuwah was with Isaac, and he had been with his father Abraham. For Isaac kept all the commandments of Yahuwah, as Abraham his father had commanded him, for he did not turn to the right or to the left from the right path which his father had commanded him. Now we are on chapter 27. So yeah, we got 2 more chapters left. At the time after the death of Abraham, Esau frequently went into the field to hunt, and Nimrod, the sovereign of Babylon, the same was Amraphel, also frequently went with his mighty men to hunt in the field, and to walk about with his men in the cool of the day. And Nimrod was observing Esau all the days, and jealousy was formed in the heart of Nimrod against Esau all the days. And on a certain day Esau went into the field to hunt, and he found Nimrod walking in the wilderness with his 2 men. And all his mighty men and his people were with him in the wilderness, but they turned back at a distance from him, and they went from him in the different directions to hunt. And Esau concealed himself from Nimrod, and he lay in wait for him in the wilderness. And Nimrod and his men that were with him did not know him, but Nimrod and his men frequently walked about in the field at the cool of the day, to know where his men were hunting in the field. And Nimrod and two of his men were with him and came to the place where they were, where Esau leaped suddenly from his ambush and drew his sword and hastened and ran to Nimrod and cut off his head. And Esau fought a desperate fight against the two men that were with Nimrod, and they all called out to him, and Esau turned to them and smote them to death with his sword. And all the mighty men of Nimrod who had left him to go to the wilderness heard the cry at the distance, and they knew the voices of those two men. They ran to know the cause of it. And whereupon they found the sovereign and the two men that were with him laying dead in the wilderness. And Esau saw the mighty men of Nimrod coming at a distance. He fled and thereby escaped. And Esau took the valuable garments of Nimrod, which Nimrod's father had bequeathed to Nimrod, and with which Nimrod prevailed over the whole land, and he ran and concealed them in his house. And Esau took the garments and ran into the city because of Nimrod's men, and he came to his father's house wearied and exhausted from the fight, for he was ready to die through grief, when he approached his brother Jacob and sat before him. And he said to his brother Jacob, Look, I shall die this day. Why then do I want my birthright? And Jacob acted wisely with Esau in this matter, and Esau sold his birthright to Jacob, for it was brought so by Yahuwah, as Esau's portion in the cave of the field of Machpelah, which Abraham brought forth from the children of Heth for the possession of the burial ground. And Esau also sold to Jacob, and Jacob brought all this from his brother Esau for value given. And Jacob wrote the whole of this in a book, and he witnessed the same with witnesses, and he sealed it, and the book remains in the hands of Jacob. And when Nimrod the son of Cush died, his men lifted him up and brought him with lamenting, and buried him in his city. And all the days that Nimrod lived was 215 years, and he died. And in the days that Nimrod reigned over the people of the land were 185 years. And Nimrod died by the sword of Esau in shame and contempt, and the seed of Abraham caused his death as he had seen in his dream. And the death of Nimrod, his reign also became divided into many divisions, and all those parts that Nimrod reigned over were restored to the respective sovereigns of the land, who recovered them after the death of Nimrod. And all the people, the house of Nimrod, were a slave for a long time, and all the other sovereigns of the land. Chapter 28. In those days after the death of Abraham, in that year Yahuwah brought a severe scarcity of food in the land. And while the scarcity of food was raging in the land of Canaan, Isaac rose up and go down to Egypt because of the scarcity of food, as his father Abraham has done. And Yahuwah appeared that night to Isaac, and he said to him, Do not go down into Egypt, but rise and go to Gerar, to Abimelech, the sovereign of the Philistines, and remain there till the scarcity of food ceases. And Isaac rose up and went to Gerar, and Yahuwah commanded him, and remained there for a full year. And when Isaac came to Gerar, the people of the land saw that Rebekah, his wife, was of good-looking appearance. The people of Gerar asked Isaac concerning his wife, and he said, She is my sister. For he was afraid to say she was his wife, lest the people of the land should slay him because of her. And the prince of Abimelech went and praised the woman to the sovereign, but he did not answer them, neither did he attend to their words. But he heard them say that Isaac declared to her to be his sister, so that the sovereign reserved this within himself. And the Isaac had remained 3 months in the land. Abimelech looked out the window. When he looked, and see, Isaac was playing with Rebekah his wife, and Isaac dwelt in the outer house belonging to the sovereign, so that the house of Isaac was opposite to the house of the sovereign. And the sovereign said to Isaac, What is this you have done to us, saying of your wife, She is my sister? How easily one might of a great man of the people have lain with her, and you have brought guilt upon us. And Isaac said to Abimelech, Because I was afraid lest I die, because she is my wife, therefore I said, She is my sister. At that time Abimelech gave orders, all his princes and great men, and they took Isaac and Rebekah his wife, and they brought him before the sovereign. And the sovereign commanded that they should dress him in princely garments, and they made him ride through the streets of the city, and proclaim before them throughout the land, saying that this is the man, that this is his wife. Whoever touches this man or his wife shall indeed die. And Isaac returned with his wife to the sovereign's house, and Yahuwah was with Isaac, and he continued to become great and lacked nothing. And Yahuwah caused Isaac to find favor in the sight of Abimelech and all the sight of his subjects. And Abimelech acted well with Isaac, for Abimelech remembered the oath and the covenant that existed between his father and Abraham. And Abimelech said to Isaac, see, the whole earth is before you. Dwell wherever it may seem good in your eyes until you return to your land. And Abimelech gave Isaac fields and vineyards in the best part of the land of Gerar to sow and reap and eat the fruits of the ground until the days of the scarcity of food had passed by. And Isaac sowed in that land and received 100-fold. In the same year Yahuwah favored him. And the man became great, and he had possessions of flocks and possessions of herds, and a great supply of servants. And when the days of the scarcity of food was passed away, Yahuwah appeared to Isaac and said to him, rise up and go out from this place and return to your land, to the land of Canaan. And Isaac rose up and returned to Hebron, which is in the land of Canaan, he and all belonging to him, as Yahuwah commanded him. And after this, Shelah, the son of Arpachshad, died in that year, which is the 18th year of the lives of Jacob and Esau. And all the days that Shelah lived were 433 years, and he died. And at that time, Isaac sent his younger son Jacob to the house of Shem and Eber, and he learned the Torah of Yahuwah. And Jacob remained in the house of Shem and Eber for 32 years. But Esau his brother did not go, for he was not willing to go, and he remained in his father's house in the land of Canaan. And Esau was continually hunting in the fields to bring home which he could get. So Esau did all the days. And Esau was a crafty and deceitful man, who hunted after the hearts of men and persuaded them. And Esau was a mighty man of the field, and of course of time went as usual to hunt. And he came as far as the field of Sheir, the same of Edom. And he remained in the land of Seir, hunting in the field 1 year and 4 months. And Esau saw there in the land of Seir the daughter of a man of the Canaan, and her name was Yahudith, the daughter of Beri, the son of Epher, the clans of Heth, and the son of Canaan. And Esau took her for a wife, and he came to her. And Esau was 40 years old when he took her, and he brought her to Hebron, the land of his father's dwelling place, and he dwelt there. And it came to be in those days, in the 110th year of the life of Isaac, that is, in the 50th year of the life of Jacob, in that year Shem, the son of Noah, died, and Shem was 600 years old at his death. And Shem died, and Jacob returned to his father at Hebron, which is in the land of Canaan. And in the 56th year of the life of Jacob, people came from Haran, and Rebekah was told concerning her brother Laban, the son of Bethuel, for the wife of Laban was barren in those days, and bore no children, and all his female servants bore none to him. And Yahuwah afterwards remembered Adinah, the wife of Laban, and she conceived and bore twin daughters. And Laban called the names of his daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. And those people came and told those matters to Rebekah, and Rebekah rejoiced greatly because Yahuwah has visited her brother and that he had gained children. So that is for the chapter 28. Everyone on YouTube, I hope you all enjoyed this reading, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments section below. And yeah, so that's it for this reading. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Wait, hold on. This is not. This is not working. Hold on. Come on.